Hello, everybody. Um, we would like to introduce you a full overview of multi-country approach of COVID measures to sustain the economy. I will first speak about the global approach, who we are, and then speak for France, and the other partners of the international departments will proceed to present each of their country. A few minutes of presentation about ORCOM. Key numbers, first of all, as you can read it, almost 850 staff, almost 55 partners, 25 offices in 7 regions. Also abroad, of course, 4 offices in China, 3 offices in US, and 1 office in UK. The office dealing with international business in France is located in Paris. We'll come back to that in a few seconds. More than 10,000 clients, and as you can see, a quite classical share between accounting, advisory, and audit, and a bit more than 80 million of turnover. In France, we are very represented with a territorial localization around 4 brands for 4 different sets of skills. So ORCOM, which is the most known one, for accounting, audit, and advisory, Actiforce for human resources, and Stratorial for public finances management, and H3P for financial advisor, private sector. International offices, as you can see, so 2 partners and 40 people in the US, Boston, San Francisco, New York. In London, for UK, the UK office, around 2 partners. In China, in 4 countries, so Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Hong Kong, and 3 partners. And in Paris, for the international office of the French location of ORCOM, with 3 partners, Nicolas Coquille, Elisabeth Maury, and myself. I have been there around for approximately 10 years, plus additional 10 years before ORCOM at international level. I specialize in business internationalization consultancy, and of course, I'm a chartered accountant, legal auditor, and graduate in international economics, and specialize in international taxation and transfer pricing, both private and corporate. Along with our own location abroad, we can count on long-term relationships with other firms. First circle of trust is best friends. So we have a bilateral relationship with important firms in Italy, Spain, Eastern Europe, West Africa. And where we have no location, no implementation, or no historical relationship, we can count on our colleague from BKR International and globally. Both very complementary. BKR it's more for the ORCOM brand, and then globally it's more for the H3P brand, financial advisory on one side, and international advisory on the other side. Our service, and this is applicable for all our international locations, so 350 people dealing with international business, we do all everywhere the same kind of service set. First one, most known one, classical one, international support, so assistance to subsidiaries full package. Corporate advisory, so change in accounting standards, IFRS, tax and financial management, cash management worldwide. The third service is, of course, transfer pricing, which is, of course, linked with tax, but not only. It's also an organizational point of view. So it's a dedicated service. The service is led by myself personally. Audit, both legal and contractual. International HR, to help the mobility of top management. And wealth management, again, linked with the mobility of top management. So the mobility raises question of who pay what kind of tax and where. We'll start up with an overview of measures in France. Again, the other country will be treated and exposed by each of the partners. So the first block, the green one, is the employment support measures, two aspects: special unemployment support by the state and the solidarity fund. We'll, of course, detail all this. Second block, the blue one, regard measures for deferring short-term payable charges. So fiscal and social contribution, of course, some operating expense, and bank loans. The last one, in red, the cash inputs. Pre-existing reimbursement of tax receivable, atout loan, rebond loan, we will detail that, and the very new one, and the one we discussed most about in this period of time, the state guarantee loan. Let's start with the first block, the green one, employment support measures, so state relief for the partial activity. Any company with a reduction or suspension of activity demonstrating a link with the epidemic could be asked for it. All beneficiaries of an employment contract, including professionalization and an apprenticeship contract, can be covered by this state relief. The application is online. You have to fill a candidacy file, let's say, to request for it and brings all the supporting document and information. Of course, we do that for our clients. The employers must submit his application within 30 days of the employee being placed in partial employment. So the retroactivity is 30 days, which is a month. In terms of legal procedures inside the company, you have to, the legal body representing the staff should be consulted. Again, here we prepared everything for our client. And for now, it might change in a few weeks, it might change in a few months, but for now, the duration is 12 months. But we'll come back to that. Foreign companies can ask for partial activities. This is very important. When you are located with a subsidiary, with a permanent establishment, or even with an RFE in France, you can ask for partial activity. In terms of money, what is the level of relief? So the compensation is equal to 70% of the gross salary used as a basis for calculating paid holidays. The state reimburses this 70%. There is a limitation, but it's 4.5 times the minimum wage, which is quite good. We usually think that above this kind of level, people can do smart working because they belong to management, etc. And the claim is made each month. So once you candidate to this state relief, you have to follow it to follow it up every month. To declare on the months, past months, how many days for how many employees did you actually do partial activity. Second kind of employment support measures is the Solidarity Fund, financial aid. So it's 1,500 euros. It's very low because it's dedicated to micro enterprises. You have all the criteria here. So a very small business, and the Fund of Solidarity is dedicated to owners. Okay, so the owners, an entrepreneur who has his own business and it's quite small for now, he can ask. The application is made online, but we assist, of course, for that. Additional relief of 2,000 euros. The same kind of micro enterprises who already request 1,500 euros as a first relief, they can ask for 2,000 more. Second block of deferral charge measures, it's a tax deferral. Right? In terms of tax, companies can apply for a tax payment deferral. To facilitate the process, the Treasury Department of the French state provide a model request to be sent to the corporate tax department. Most of the time it's true as well. A simple email can also be enough. Payment deferral is granted for a period of 3 months with no supporting document required, so it is quite powerful. This concerns company tax, value-added contribution, and payroll tax. We'll go back to payroll tax. VAT and withholding tax do not benefit from this measure. So basically, when the company collect money on behalf of the states, which is the case for VAT and withholding tax, doesn't apply. Deferral of social contributions. So you have the URSSAF, which is basically social security. Here again, you have the option to defer payment for 3 months. In that case, declaration must still be filled without payment, and a deferral request must be made at the same time. So you declare it, full package, and then you request for a deferral payment. Retirement contribution. Here again, you can ask for a payment deferral, but the declaration must be filled on time without payment, and a deferral request must be made at the same time. The deferral generally lasts 3 months. Insurance, provident schemes. It is a local negotiation with the provider of the insurance. So, but most of the time, this is the experience speaking, we saw that they agree to postpone payments. So this is very important that one is managed by the state and the other is asked by the state, by the government, but it's not by law an obligation. So, but most of the time the insurance company agreed on this. Contribution of self-employed workers. So here again, it could work for them. They have to contact the local staff office and request for it. Self-employed person can also ask for an advance payment of the annual settlement to obtain a recalculation of the contribution consistent with the company hours. Obtain a new payment schedule for provisional contribution and request the involvement of social welfare for the partial and total coverage of the contribution. About deferral of operating expense measure. Here it is a bit specific because also the governments put a lot of pressure on landlords, for example. Still, the negotiation is one-to-one. There is no, by law, an obligation to postpone or suspend. You have to ask your lawyer to come with you and discuss payment terms, etc. For medium-term bank loans and other loans, usually here again is one-to-one. But here again, the government put a lot of pressure on banks, and most of the time banks accept on one side, but most of the time as well, they grab their phone to help their client. Of course, it will depend on the health of the company. Early repayment of tax credit. So you can postpone one on one side and ask for early repayment. For corporate tax receivables, this is applicable. The state can refund all tax credit refundable in 2020, and in particular the tax credit for competitiveness and employment, CICE, not yet allocated. The research tax credit, CIR, and the tax credit for the training of managers. To receive the funds, company must fill out some forms. So of course we'll do that for you. You can also have the early repayment of V80 credits. It has been announced by the states that they will speed up the processing of V80 credit refund application. Indeed, simplified procedures is temporarily in place for all refund applications below 500,000 euros. The simplified procedure is effective until the end of the second month following the end of the measures restricting travel and prohibiting gathering or certain activities. So we are right in the middle of it. And here's the last block of measures. So the red one, cash flow contribution. We'll start up with pre-existing loans, but could be very interesting. So the Kickstart loan, rebond, emprunt rebond, and the asset loan, atout. It's for companies with an initial balance sheet of 12 months minimum. Medium-term financing to meet cash flow needs related to the economic climate and exceptional increase of working capital. Up to total personal fund, preferably backed by bank financing, your or existing, but no additional warranty. So the Kickstart loan is from 10,000 to 3,000 euro over 7 years with a 2-year grace period. And the asset loan, atout, is from 50,000 to 5 million for SMEs, with a duration of 3 to 5 years and a grace period up to 12 months. So those are the pre-existing, but very efficient as well. Very new one is a state-backed loan. Company of all size, regardless of their legal form or activity, apart from a few exceptions. For example, companies who just manage assets, landlords, would be a bit difficult for them to ask for it. Amounts that may be paid. Up to 25% of the 2019 turnover or of the last financial year end. Or other type of measure, 2 years payroll for innovative companies or companies created since the 1st January 2019. Innovative companies, it's a label, it's a legal label, it's a brand. So it's granted by the BPI. So you cannot go to see your bank and say, I respect the innovative company criteria. I can apply the 2 years payroll to calculate the state-backed loan. If you don't have the stamp, you will have to go back to the 25% of turnover calculation method. Guaranteed directly by the states. Up to 90% of the loan is guaranteed by the states. No additional guarantee or security will be requested by the banks. Repayment deferred for 1 year, then up to 5 years at the company discretion. And the cost is up to 0.25% the first year plus bank costs. The first step is to define its financing need. Even if the states guarantee up to 90% of the loan through the BPI, the negotiation is one-to-one. You go see your bank directly. So the bank also, they receive pressure and they are part of the massive sustained operation of the economy. But still, they will have a look, they will audit your request. So you have to work on the table, financial cash flow table, and put the level of your need at the right level in terms of what do I need now, but will I be able to pay it back later on? We'll go back on this kind of advice in a few minutes. The company approaches one or more banks to apply for a loan. The cumulative amount of this loan must not exceed 25% of the turnover. You can request up to 3, 5, 6 banks if you work already with 6 banks. It's a cumulative amount that should not exceed 25%. After examining the company's situation, the bank gives its pre-approval for a loan. And then we connect to BPI France platform to request for a unique number, so making the loan agreed by the bank recognized as a guarantee one. Our advice in this context: do try and manage a loan in this situation. You must get advice. Of course, I will recommend to ask for us, but in any case, take your best consultant, historical consultant, or chartered accountant, and work with him about this. Stay in constant contact with the banker. Anticipate your cash flow needs well beyond the short term and according to your activity. 6 months seems to be the minimum, of course, but 12 months is better. Use the limit of 25%. But taking into account that you will have to repay it. One thing is very important is that, as the other measure, but we'll see that again later on, the duration of it is until the 31st of December 2020. So you can ask more than one loan to the same bank. This will mean that maybe to pass the short term, you will not need 25% right now, but you will calculate 15%. So just request 15%. If it's enough to go through this crisis context, it will be a lower charge on your P&L and financial statements to grab the restart of the business. Here are some examples of cash flow needs calculation. So we can start on one side from the estimated margin loss, deducting the estimated savings in expense, and then you arrive at the last line on the total bottom cash flow needs. Or you can take month per month and calculate your cash flow difference. Take the sum of all this cash flow negative difference, and this is the total of it will give you the cash flow needs. It's quite simple, but very efficient at the same time. And the bank needs this kind of document, simple and efficient. What are our advice in this crisis? About the state-backed loan. First of all, loss of half of the share capital or negative equity does not make you run any risk of cancellation or forfeiture of the state guarantee. You cannot lose the state guarantee on the loan. Of course, if you go see your bank with a loss of half of the share capital, this will have an impact on the look of your candidacy. That's for sure. On the notation of Banque de France, that's for sure. But once you get the loan, if your situation change in the future months, you don't lose the state guarantee. Are one-man businesses without employee eligible? The answer is yes. Can sole traders apply for state-backed loan? Yes. Legally, there is nothing stopping them in the text of state-backed loans. Most of the time, they don't need it because they have other kind of measures, but nothing could stop a sole trader to ask for a state-backed loan. Does a company have to be up to date with its tax and social security debts to receive a state-backed loan? The answer is no. This is not part of an eligibility criteria. Can I combine the benefit of state-backed loans with other aid schemes? Yes. All those three blocks of measure will be combined. You can ask for partial activity measure plus state-backed loan plus postponing tax and social contribution charge payment. Is there a maximum number of application? The answer is no. So basically, because the measure the minimum duration is the end of the year 2020, split your total 25% of turnover in a few steps of demand in order to gain time as well and not to be too heavy on debts too early. Is the turnover exclusive of tax or inclusive of tax? Of course, the turnover is exclusive of tax. Can an attestation from a chartered accountant be used as a calculation basis? It is possible, of course, to have this kind of attestation if audited accounts are not available, in particular for the year 2018. Should other operating income be included? The turnover is that of the tax bundle, liasse fiscale. It does not include other lines such as other operating income. Can the total turnover of the French entity concerned be taken into account, or only the turnover that the entity achieved in France? The entire turnover of the company registered in France is taken into account. This includes, of course, export sales, but also intra-company revenues. If you sell directly, for example, as a cost plus to your headquarters, this is the turnover of the local subsidiary. Our advice about the management of non-cash expense. Should companies systematically request a deferral of installments? No. It depends on individual cash flow. Here, this is very important. We go back to the cash flow plan, 12 months, 6 months minimum. You have to draw your plan without all those measures and then see if what it will give in the best option and worst option, and then put the measure at the right spot on the cash flow. Partial activity is a bit simple because if your business has been shut down or closed because of the quarantine, it's easy to identify that it will be covered. But for the other, the cash and non-cash measures, we will recommend not to jump in too fast because at some point you will have to pay it back. Care should be taken by making use of the carryover options. There is a risk of ending up with a double maturities during the recovery. This is exactly our point. Also to be combined with a state-backed loan to mitigate the disbursement during the recovery. Sometimes you can also say, okay, let's not postpone some payments, but let's ask for a state-backed loan that will cover those cash outs. And a bit of information on tax deadlines that has been postponed, very actual, which tax deadline for May have been pushed back, so most of it has been pushed back to the end of June. Find effective solution to hold out in the long term. This is very important for us and our 3 months experience during this crisis. We help all our clients. We are on the first line as all chartered accountant, and in this context for us, it seems very essential to review the cash flow forecast. This is the best tool to have on the table and to act quickly by using all the levers at your disposal, but not without saying it, the times of reimbursement. This is, for me, very, very important to have in mind. Your priorities, of course, in the very short term, find cash quickly, especially when you shut down or close. But in the long term, anticipate recovery based on exit scenarios and taking into account your business, bearing in mind payment of different installments, the repayment of loans, and the cash flow you will need to seize post-crisis opportunity. What about other suppliers? Our tip, pay your supplier when you can. You have the state-backed loan to pay them. It is important to remain in a relationship of trust. Again, think about the recovery time. If you lost the trust of your supplier, you will not be delivered in time later on. You will have some choices to make. So he will choose trust and fidelity. You will need this relationship when you come out of the crisis. Also, on a more macroeconomics level, an interruption in the payment chain will bring the whole economy to a standstill. So we recommend to our clients to maintain payment and integrate that in the cash flow plan. Do not use suppliers other than the measures suppliers to postpone payments and use that cash short term. There are solutions, indeed, to find the cash flow needed to pay salaries and suppliers, including, of course, the state-backed loan. This is made for it. What to do for my international development? More than ever, start with the project mode. First step, upstream thoughts process, brainstorming. Clear the table, put everything you want and you had in mind on paper. Then drafting the strategic plan action. Of course, we'll do that for our clients. Answer a few key questions. Why there? To do what? To sell what? What kind of value chain do I want for my group, international group? Is it efficient? Is it part of our DNA as a company? Is it sustainable? All these kind of questions. So we have, of course, a pre-prepared scheme of approach to draft this strategic action plan. Once it is all written, look for complementary resource, staff, finance, networks. Staff, inside, outside, I need help and skills, some specific skills sometimes on the sales, on the financial management, on tax, inside, outside, I need the skills that I identify in the strategic action plan. I need finance. Can I pay for it myself, or do I need some loan, or do I need some help from the states or some tax credit when you do exportation, for example? Some countries do that. And networks, most of the time when you install a subsidiary to sell, you will need sales networks, distribution networks. Then implement or install your exportation. This is a final step. And once all those steps are done, you have in hand your roadmap for international business. So then you can apply it to new countries. Also, you can apply it to a very different implementation. For example, I build up my plan with success to implement a subsidiary in France to sell my brand. I want now to use the same plan to implement a subsidiary in China to produce, or in Vietnam to produce. It's not because the role and the function of the subsidiary is very different that we cannot use part of the strategic action plan, because most of the time all steps have been drafted in the strategic action plan. So then you have to secure and deploy. One last bit of advice. Think about the recovery. The duration of the measure, for me, is very important to have this in mind. As of today, it has not been precise. However, we know a few things. Cash measure will exist until the end of the year. State-backed loan, for example, this is key. They announce that it will last until the 31st of December. So again, do not make one big loan now because you think it will end up. No, take the time to take only what you need. You will be lighter when it's time to go back to opportunities, sales, etc. The measure for deferral of expense will continue, probably under different format for sectors in crisis or unable to reopen. In the case of France, we already saw that in the car business, they are shaping up a specific plan for this sector. Worldwide vision. This is key for international business, even small one. You don't need to be big to take the opportunity to use a strategic tool. Intragroup transaction can be impact, and transfer pricing can be a strategic tool to use those impacts. Use cash measures as a tool for worldwide cash management. If you are implemented in the US, in Europe, in UK and France, for example, we do worldwide cash management, at least at strategic level. Put all the measures on the table and see where the money can go where, coming from where. The financial support mother to daughter can be reversed. This is a classical one. The headquarter, because it's bigger, it has consolidated financial statement, as most of the time, more backup from the banks and local subsidiaries, especially subsidiaries dedicated to one function, distribution, production, etc. But still, in that case, you can sometimes use the state-backed loan in France and have a risk repartition between subsidiaries instead of having all on the headquarters. Financial support can be also agreed between sisters companies. Transfer pricing in the context of economical struggling should be closely monitored. In order to avoid reconsideration of the group policy by tax administration. If you have already, even not written yet, but a tax transfer pricing policy, whether it is again written or not, this period of time will mechanically challenge it, challenge the established set of transactions between companies depending on the function of each other and the level of price. That's one thing, and we have no info yet because it's very, very recent. We are still in the middle of it, but probably tax administration will understand it. But until a certain point, at some point, they will go back to international companies and say, okay, but you use the crisis to modify your transfer pricing policy, and you didn't amend your transfer pricing policy, or you didn't reshape it, or you didn't put it back in the reality of the transaction back where they were. So you have to monitor it very closely. On the other hand, this crisis could be an opportunity to shape your transfer pricing policy, use more as a strategic tool than as an historical tax constraint. Transfer pricing policy is not only respecting standards from the states, but it's half part of it, at least, before the benchmark, let's say, it's function and risk. It is your chain value organization that is on the table. So you can use the crisis to reshape it and rethink about it. Then comes the tax aspect of it, which is the benchmark, which is the price, which which kind of profit do I let in which subsidiary, etc., tax risk, etc., compliance, etc. But the first part of it is organizational. It's a difficult time, but could be a time also of reconsidering a few subjects, a few topics for your business, for your strategy, for your organization. And it could be also a time once be ready and I hope you will resist the crisis to seize as well some opportunities. Thank you for your attention. If you want to know more about us and about our communication during the COVID info measures, you have our website, orcom.fr. And as head of the international department, I manage the global approach of it. So if you want to enter in contact directly with the department because you have no idea of yet which country you want to discuss general approach, strategical approach, you can always contact me, of course. And, but you will be able also to contact directly subsidiaries. Thank you very much again. I hope you're the best in this period, and don't hesitate to call us or to write us. Bye.